Oops. Hello. This is a new plugin I've been working on that is intended to handle data asset management using text files directly and resolving them into Unreal safe objects that can be used at runtime. So you don't have to deal with like merge conflicts between binary files essentially. As a warning, this is still work in progress, so there may be bugs you're going to see, but I think it's good enough state to start showing it off essentially. Uh, First off, when you're in the editor and you're dealing with raw text files essentially. But when you package the game, it will actually cook and package it into binary assets and placing. And they'll place with like the normal pack files essentially within the project, so you can expect like normal Unreal approaches for file access. The plugin also supports pulling it from a backend server and overriding, appending, or removal of that data at runtime non-destructively. So like everything is still on disk, stays there, and everything runtime updated is runtime updated, cached separately, so that way it can be resolved, so you're not pulling in the whole thing every time, unless you want to do that. It is an approach. But sometimes you get a lot of data that you're going to have to do that with, and it's not a good idea to do it all at once. Just cache what you don't need. You don't need to pull every time. So currently I have the plugin set up with a null server handler for this. This is just because it depends on your backend service and it's easy to extend. So, the null version is just there for anything that's locally on disk essentially, that you can use just out of the box right now. So that way you have an example also set up. So that way you're not just like, okay, well, it's doing this default alternate path. You don't have to like implement your own version. It's like there's a version already implemented. It's just not doing anything that you're wanting. So just override it or inherit from it or whatever. Just make a new class and then there you go. The plugin supports currently JSON, XML, and YAML files. You can support other file types if you wanted, but you need to build it and you need to mix and match. And you need to build that stuff yourself, but the examples are there and it's clearly documented and commented. You can also mix and match these different file types in your data asset types, so that way you're not restricted to just a certain file type or a certain data asset type. It makes it very flexible if you need that support. I'm also looking at notes, so that's why I'm kind of like jumping around a little bit. At runtime, for being able to reference these data assets, you can use a data asset reference struct or ref struct, uh, which basically just points to the data asset via like an ID. That ID is internally unique and generated, so that way, like, that's how we track it internally. Any user-facing IDs is what it's called, are actually tracking just for your purposes as a developer, but they're not meant to be used internally. So that's not actually how you would resolve and find stuff. It's really the internal ID. And that's just, for devs to know what they're messing with. Uh, the plugin also features unit tests, Unreal header tool validation, and per data asset type validation that you can implement. This is to help avoid shooting yourself in the foot as much as possible. So, yeah. And also just make sure designers are configuring stuff appropriately, etc. To start, let's actually open this up. So we have our Start Games tab, and we can go to the Dynamic Text Asset Browser. That's what it's called, is Dynamic Text Asset Plugin. I realized I never actually said that, I think. Yep, I never actually said that. So to start, uh, this is the browser, with it being structured where there's class types and then there's the actual data assets here. I plan to have the root types also be shown here, uh, just in the list so you can select it and then you can see all of them kind of thing, for UX purposes, but it only shows data assets that can be instanced at the moment. So these are the 4 types that are in this project. Uh, Root types are the highest level data asset essentially. The plugin has a default one set up, so that's the one that these all inherit from essentially, for utility, but you could register and deregister your own root types by calling a function to like register it, deregister when the module starts and ends. The only requirement is that it has to implement a specific interface, and that's about it. And the interface is called a data asset provider. So that way you can easily access it and know what type you're messing with and that sort of thing. And it supports Blueprint because I'm using a T script interface. So that way you're not having to deal with C++ only interface. 1 second while I take a swig of some soda. And it's Sprite, if anyone's wondering what drink that is. Anyway, first, we'll start with the alternate data asset type base, just to make it simple. So here you can see the two types. There's the ID as well that you can copy out. I don't know why my computer is having these weird hitches. It wasn't doing this before. It might be because I'm recording. But anyway, so you can have these different types, and you can also have other file types. So right now it's just JSON files. You can create a new dynamic type for that. One of the bugs also is that you can have the same name as others, but I need to fix that. So you can have JSON, XML, YAML, whatever, and then you have a unique type. So you can also duplicate them. Also, we have validation, so you can validate them. So if I do this, that will actually validate all of them. I need to change that so it's based on the selected. If there's none selected, validate all of them. But you can do this where you can validate them. And yeah, this will also refresh the full list of data assets found. So that way, in case you want to just clean out your cache of it searching everything and caching it for the lookups, you can rename them, you can delete them, you can duplicate. You can also open the selected data assets file location on your browser, on your computer. And also we have a reference viewer. I'll show that a little bit later. But you can also open this one up. Here you go. And it opened the file. So where it is. So let's actually, let me look at my notes. Let's actually go to C++ land. So we're going to go over here. So this is that type, test alternate DTA base. That's literally all you have to do is just inherit from the base class, or if you want to implement your own, you can. This one is just set up for utility and for example purposes, so that way you have all that information, but you just need that interface and then implement the interface. This extra stuff is just because it's in the plugin and it's meant for utility, so really there's only you just need the interface. That's the core thing that you need. It also supports uClass stuff with those keywords. Same thing with uProperties as well. It enforces that you have to use tsoftObject pointer or class. You can't use a hard reference with these types because it makes it more complicated than it needs to be. And these are enforced at the Unreal header tool level with that functionality being added in the plugin. So this is just to make it more simplified and easy to use. And I don't think there's any real need to have any hard references in there. If there is, you can always just branch off the plugin because the plugin is going to be open source, so, and free. So I should probably start with that as well. That would have probably brought people in a lot quicker with listening. Anyway, so we're going to go back to this. So we have we're going to open up this one. So the default one has no actual changes, but you can also see it's showing reference stuff. So we'll get to that in a minute. So here is our editor. Let me do this. Oh. So you have your details panel and you have your raw view panel. The raw view literally shows your on-disk file text, not what is the editor version or anything like that. This is literally the actual text file if you went to show and explore and then open it in Notepad or whatever. So if you make any changes, it's not going to show up here unless you save those changes. The metadata is just to help differentiate, different DTA type validation information. So, you can get that information from there. This is just for you to be able to validate and confirm things. You can also copy it out. You can see what file type it is. You can see what class type it is. Yeah, so you can modify the values. I have here, level basic. You can open up the level, etc. And let's actually open up default so you can see a difference. So yeah, you can see its ID. It also supports versioning, so that way you can in C++ you can add new properties, version it out, and then deprecate old ones, and then cleanly update and so forth. So nice and easy. And let's see the raw view. Look at that, nothing, because yeah. And if there's nothing here, it's basically just going to use the default class itself. So whatever the default parameters are of the class type, which in this case is going to have this true, this be 3.0, false, null, that kind of thing. So close these, go back to this, and let me look at my notes. All right, open those up. So currently they're JSON files, but you can support other file types. So I'm going to show you that. So if I go to this base class, it's going to show the like the child classes as well. And I'm going to add functionality of saying like only explicitly show this guy, or, you know, so forth, or show the child classes, etc. I'll probably have a checkbox for just like show class type only, and then turn it off to show child classes as well. So, and it'll probably be default to true. Anyway, you can see YAML, you can see XML for these types. Let me open these up so you can see the base class is this one. And yeah, that's YAML. So this one, they're both the same base class, as you can see. And I can even show you the raw text file. So, boop, boop. See, two different file types. So, and it supports JSON too. Anyway, so when it does that parsing though, it does convert it into JSON to then turn it into these file types. This is just for easier organization, but you can override that and implement your own version if you wanted. So the extendability is there if you want to do an even faster encoding process, but I found that it's pretty fast already. So yeah. You can also, so here's how you would do that data asset reference. So you would just specify which data asset you're wanting to specify, and you can type in the names, so they're searchable. You can also specify by a type, so it only shows that type. So yeah, nice and easy. And you can open up that data asset, nice little handy button. So, or you can just copy out the ID and then paste it in later, etc. What else? Let me look. Currently there's JSON, yep. Oh yeah, so they also support inheritance, so I'll show you that. So let's actually go to that base class. So this one is a little bit more complicated because it has that validate function overridden. So we can actually go back into here, and I'm going to turn this off. Ooh, fill toolbars, yeah. As I said, there's like weird crashes with the other stuff I gotta fix. But the general idea with this one is that when you run the validation, it's basically going to check if that flag is true. If it's not true, then we failed validation. Enabling this flag will fix it, and it'll print it out too. So we can reopen this. Let's do this one. Oop. Save. Oh no, I can't. Validation failed. Oh no, so I can't save it all. See, it won't let you. And then checkbox enabled. Now here's a fun thing. You can edit the raw text file to make that validation fail. And then when you run the validator, it'll point it out and say, hey, this failed, because it's going based on what the raw text file version is, not the editor, you know, unsaved version, because that's going to get discarded when you close the editor. So we only validate based on the raw text file. All right. What else? Sports inheritance. Yeah. So we have our base class here, you know, it has these parameters, that sort of thing. This is also the type. You can also specify the type using meta tags that's documented in there. I just wasn't using it here, I apologize. So yeah, in test asset A, it inherits from this one, and it adds test float 2. So we can actually open that up. Look at that. See? Nice and easy. And you can add customizations however you want, like normal. So it functionally applies like you're messing with a data asset in terms of the editor usage. So that's a really nice thing about it. So let's actually go into using it in the editor. So, or using it for gameplay. So we have this actor here. Its job is basically just go to each actor that it's pointing to in its chain, load its data asset, and then print out its information. That's it. So it's going this one, this one, and this one. So I'm going to hit play, and you're going to see a bunch of debug text right here. So loaded, loaded, loaded. And you can see there's like, is the other DTA loaded? Yes, because it was this one. Is this one loaded? No, because it's pointing to one that hasn't been loaded yet. So, and this one's pointing to the one that's next, which was not loaded yet. So loading order does matter. So let's go into what that blueprint looks like. So I'm going to open up this. All right, so let's go to event graph. So this is start loading. So it runs from begin play or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that's the initial event. So we have our DTA ref, you know, yeah, dynamic text asset ref. Man, struggle with saying it. Then you can select the default types. If it's a valid one, this checks if it's pointing to a valid ID, not if it's loaded. It even says that in the comment to make it explicit. If it is valid, print out that we're going to start loading and then start loading it. So we're going to go to that function. It's a little bit messy, but you know, I'm trying to just test stuff and showcase this. So was it successful or failed? Loading provider is the interface, so that's the object since you could have different root types again. So we're going to cast to our base class, which was this guy. If it is that class, we're going to check if it's other data asset ref. So let's do this one. Oop, and open that one up. So it's pointing to test B. Well, actually, hang on. Let me go to that. Test A, I think. Yeah. Actually, no. Which one was it? Okay, let's look at the first one. Test B. So test B was the one we were playing with, right? So it's pointing to this guy, which this guy's pointing back to test B. So test B will show up as is loaded. So I can close that. So it is loaded. We get its user-facing ID just so we could read it, and then print out test float, you know, that kind of thing, and print out which user-facing ID we just got from our provider. So what if it fails? Well, let's try and test for an alternative data asset ref. So again, same approach, get the data from it, print it out, etc. So that's kind of about it. And this is if you're curious about what the debug info is, it's just this. So yeah, that's kind of it with that. Next, I'm going to cover the reference viewer. Yeah. So reference viewer. Oh, I don't know why I opened that again, bugs. So this one also caches out references so that way you can relook it up later. It's all saved in the save folder, so it's easy to just delete that folder and then you get new data essentially. So we can point to, it'll show our test component that's referencing it. So I can show you here, right here, it was, oh wait, no, it's on test actor in that component. So if we go to test actor, oh, okay. I will definitely need to solve this problem of what's going on. But again, it's a little bit interesting of finding out what the issue is there. 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to open test actor. Okay, and we have our test component, which is pointing to this guy. So as you can tell, it shows up there because, yeah, and it'll even open the actor and everything. It doesn't select the component though. So I'm going to close that. So let's open the level. So we go to the level. Is it going to crash? No. But it does select the actor for you, so that's pretty nice. Same thing as well. It also tells you what you're pointing to. So in this case, the data asset is pointing to another data asset ref and a class. So we can open up that class, which is the component, or you can open up the level, which is over here. So yeah, that's kind of it. And then you can recollect and everything. And it's asynchronous, so that way you don't have to worry about it hitching your editor and slowing things down. Yeah, and even then, modifying the data assets doesn't actually load them in for runtime usage. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, I have to close the editor to unload these assets. Actually, it's like, nope, when they get unloaded, they're unloaded because what we're really doing is using an object that gets created at runtime, essentially. So we're not even dealing with actually loading process or anything. We're just getting the file, extracting out the information, dumping it into an object, and then not reading the file anymore, kind of thing. And I found that is very fast and efficient for this sort of system. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Pretty happy with what I've gotten so far. There's more work to be done, more bug fixing as you've seen. But yeah, oh, also let me show the packaging. So I'm gonna package to Windows. Let me actually delete the previous one. Just make sure you guys see that it's a clean build. Select folder, and I will come back after it is finished packaging. Okay, it's finished packaging. So now we can open up our file. Builds. Hello, cat. My cat has decided to join us. All right, so I just made a little shortcut because when I was testing and everything, but basically just run exe. So play the waiting game while it does this. Okay, so now it's booted up, and there we go. We can see it printing out, and there's that data. Woohoo, yeah. And I can just hit escape, and it will close the game. But yeah, that's kind of about it. That's the whole plugin. So let me know what you think.